This show is sponsored by HiveMind CRM. It is more than just a CRM. It is a real estate and business mastermind that comes with an all-in-one CRM. You can have unlimited websites and users. You can call, text, RVM, and email all in one user interface. And you can set up custom automations for any type and multiple businesses. 65% of companies start using a CRM system within the first 5 years of business. Once implemented, the HiveMind will save you on marketing, give you more time, and make more money. One of our users had his first $100,000 month using our system in June. We want to see you automate and accelerate your business. Text us at 210-972-1842 for future meetings and, of course, to get our $1 course on how to make more than 6 figures on one land deal. You can schedule your free demo today at hivemindcrm.io.
Hey, welcome to today's episode. I'm Daniel, your host. I have today Brenden from Montreal, Canada. He is a speaker, trainer, and coach, and we're going to talk about how to communicate effectively, because a lot of people struggle with that, and I'm one of those. I think everybody struggles with it in some form or some fashion. It's just one of those things where you don't know how to communicate your goals. So tell me a little bit how long you've been speaking, and how do you learn this? Is it?
Yeah. Absolutely, brother. It's great to be on, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
No
Yeah, so I've been speaking now for 7 years. And how I got started was when I was in university. I went to business school. I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So all the guys my age were playing football or basketball or rugby or some other thing you probably wouldn't see me playing. I did the nerd version of that, which was presentations. That's how I learned how to speak. And then as I got older, I started coaching people who were younger than me in that program, Daniel, to help them with their communication skills. But then later on in my life, I realized that everything that I was sharing with them wasn't available online for free on the internet. So I started making YouTube videos on communication to help the world. And then a few years later, turned to a movement and a business.
Wow. Okay. So communication. So you kind of like took what you learned in college, and now you've made it into a business, coaching business, to kind of help people really communicate better, right?
You got it.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm really bad at this. Like I said, I get a lot of practice in by doing stuff like this. And this is like one of the things I tell people all the time is like, if you're really afraid of speaking, you got to do something like a podcast, because it really kind of helps you formulate and have a conversation in general. So I feel like I've gotten a lot better, but I still lacking a lot of things. So what's an easy tip you can give somebody who's starting into speaking to kind of, because I think when I first started speaking, it was like one of those things where like I actually did an event. So I started like doing the minimal things that I did an event, and like 80 people showed up, and I'm like, okay, I've never spoken in front of 80 people before. What can you help people to like overcome that first thing? Because I know what I did. What's your recommendation on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say congratulations, Daniel. It's rare to see someone in the beginning stages already attracting an audience of 80 people, so you should be really proud of yourself. That's awesome. I would say that the next piece is asking a question. And it's a question that a lot of people don't really think about, because we dream about the expensive things we want to buy. We dream about the vacations we want to go on, but we don't dream enough about how great of a communicator we can be. And the question is simply this: how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? How would your life change if you're an exceptional communicator? You know, the problem with communication, Daniel, is it's so littered in anxiety and stress and fear, right? When in reality, it shouldn't be that way, because communication is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a way to create impact. It's supposed to be about getting a better job, leading a fulfilling life. So the first thing I would say is just to reverse that a little bit and start to just spend 10 to 15 minutes journaling. How would your life change if you're an exceptional communicator? You might have a better relationship with your family. You might be able to order food better at a restaurant. You might be able to be more present with the people around you. So that way you can actually find the motivation to push through and actually get this job done.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely internal for me to like get better at speaking, because it was one of those things where like I knew I wanted to go in a direction, and like there was a lot of faults and failures I had, or personal fears of mine, just to even do this. So it was one of those things where like, okay, we do 2 live calls a week. So it's like one of those things you kind of exercise that muscle of speaking around stuff. And now I can really talk to myself for an hour, and it doesn't seem crazy. But it's one of those things where like I really had to like drive practice, learn, and then it was a lot of doing. A lot of doing.
Absolutely. You know, the best way to speak, and this is probably the most powerful thing I'll share today, Daniel. The best way to speak, coincidentally, oddly enough, weirdly enough, is to speak. Gasp. It's to speak. The best way to speak is to speak. So yeah, go speak.
So what gives you the right to speak? Because a lot of people feel they have that I don't have the ability to speak. I don't have nothing to educate people on. So is that like a mindset thing that I don't have the ability to provide value?
A couple of thoughts. A great question, Daniel. So here's a quote that I got from Ali Gadet, and he says this: "When you help one person, the world will give you permission to help everyone else." Okay, when you help one person, the world will give you permission to help everyone else. What does that mean? Does that mean being a speaker means you need to be on a big stage? No, not at all. It means having an interest or a desire to share something that you just know a little bit more than anyone else or someone else for that matter, and just start helping that person. Public speaking communication doesn't necessarily mean, that's what I hate about that definition. It doesn't mean you're some speaker speaking in front of thousands of people. That's not the goal. That maybe it might be for some, but really the goal is, are you using communication to help a single individual? Are you doubling that over time? Another piece that I want to add here is the idea of imposter syndrome that you brought up indirectly through your question. And trust me, Daniel, and everyone who's listening, I am the best example of imposter syndrome. I started coaching CEOs when I was 22, right? So I was helping people who had worked longer at the company than I was alive. So trust me, I had imposter syndrome. So how did I get over it? I got over it through this analogy I'd love to share. So let's say I came to LA, Daniel. Okay, I came to your place, like your city, and I said, hey, I'm in the city. What should I do, man? I'm in the city. You'll probably tell me, hey, Brenden, you got to check out this beach. You got to eat this food. You got to go to this restaurant. You got to visit this attraction. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In the same way that if you came to Montreal, you'd probably do the same thing. Hey, Brenden, I'm in the city. What should I do, man? What should I do in the city? I'll probably tell you. Yeah, unless you're vegan, go to the chicken place. If you are, then I have no recommendations for you. Then go to this restaurant, go to this attraction, do this thing. And we're very open about that. But don't you find that bizarre, Daniel? I mean, you're not a tour guide. I'm not a tour guide. We're not tourist experts. We don't know our city end to end, even if we've lived in it for a long time. Our dads aren't the mayor of Montreal or LA. Yet, we're super open about sharing that information, but we don't think too much about it. But when it comes to our expertise, the thing we spend years honing, the thing we want to share with the world, we have a hesitation. So why is there a difference there? Why is there a gap? Why is there some piece of information we're super, oh yeah, just go to this thing, do this thing. Even if we have zero expertise, we probably shouldn't be opening our mouth about these things. And there's other things that we do. And the answer is it comes down to what is the definition of an expert. An expert, a lot of us think, is, having a PhD, having a master's degree, having this thing. That's not what expertise means. Expertise just means being one chapter ahead of the next person on that thing. In the same way you could teach me a lot about hosting a network or hosting Hive Mind, I could probably teach you about communication. And that's the point. Teach the person behind you, not in front of you.
Okay. That was really good. That was really good. Okay. So a lot of people, they have a purpose. And like I said, I'm kind of broadening this for a lot of our listeners just because this is where a lot of people think, like, I'll never speak in front of a crowd because, like I said, this is a great conversation for me because I'm like, 5 years ago, I'm like, I would never speak in front of a crowd. It's just not going to happen. Never going to happen. And then I'm like, today it's just like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. It's one of those things where like I've kind of grown into it. But 5 years ago, it was like it wasn't even a question. Like, am I gonna lead people down a path? No. Why would I do that? Like, why would I expose myself to that? So let's talk about fears. Fears. A lot of people fear they're going to be looked at differently because they're. What's the one thing that when you stand in front of a crowd, now you expose yourself to criticism? Do people criticize you out when you're speaking? Because we're gonna face some of these fears. Because, like I said, this is one of my fears I have.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that, right? I think the question, the framework that we need to tackle this with, Daniel, is not how do we get rid of the criticism? It's not how do we get rid of the fear, but rather saying, is the criticism, is the fear worth the thing that I'm doing? Is the thing that I'm doing so important that it overweighs the criticism and the fear? I'll give you the best example with me. My fear of communication hasn't gone away. I know a lot of people might think I'm lying, but it's not true. I mean, it's true. I mean, in the sense that the fear of communication is still within us. It's just in new mediums. Okay, am I fearful of this podcast? No, I'm not. But I'm fearful of other things. Like, let's say we're having lunch, Daniel, and Elon Musk calls me. And he says, hey, Brenden, I love your YouTube channel. Like some of your videos. Can you come coach me tomorrow? I'll pay you whatever you want. Would I shit my pants? Yeah. Yeah, I probably would shit my pants. Even if I'm a communication expert, I'd probably shit my pants. I'd be like, oh my God, I got to talk to Elon Musk tomorrow. Crap. I'm nervous. I'll probably start shaking like a little quake. So what's the model that we need to follow? Let's think of it like a boxing match, Daniel. Okay. One side of the ring is the fear, and the other side of the ring is the message. So the fear is, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm anxious, I'm fearful of criticism. What are people going to think of me? And the other side of the ring is the message. Why is this important? Is it important for me to share this message with the world? Why does this matter to people? And the goal, my friend, is not to remove the fear. The goal is to make sure that when your message and your fear meet in the middle of that boxing match, that your message wins the match, that your message gets the knockout punch. So in the same way for me, why did I press record? I had every excuse in the book not to start MasterTalk. Daniel, I mean, I was 22 years old. I was on my mother's couch. I still live with my mom, right? I had no money in my bank account back then anyways. I could have said, hey, let me just wait until I'm 30. Let me wait until I have a mortgage. Let me wait until I'm a big high-end IBM executive. So why did I press record at 22 instead of 30? Because of the 15-year-old girl who couldn't afford me. Every 15-year-old girl in the world right now, every 15-year-old boy in the world right now who needs communication doesn't have anyone except for me, literally. They literally have nobody else. No one else is young enough and who has the expertise to teach them. So if I don't share the videos, no one else will. That's why I pressed record, because that message was worth all of the criticism and all the fear that came with it. And that's the framework that I encourage people to think about.
There's things that you can only resonate with your audience, and there's other people that may see the same message, but they're not only resonate with only their audience in general. So you as a creator creating in your own niche, you find your own audience as a whole, and they're going to find you. It's just a matter of time.
Absolutely. And let me push this even further, my friend, because I think this will help you too. I usually don't share this one on a podcast, but this might tune a little feathers here. Who suffers from your inability to take action? From your inability.
Let's reach.
Right. So what I encourage people is don't just answer the question, really push the pain. So what I did is the reason I'm so committed to MasterTalk is when I started sharing my message, I knew those 15-year-old girls. It wasn't like I was thinking about this in my mind. I do a lot of pro bono work for leadership committees and tech communities in Montreal. I have lunch with these 15-year-old girls. Sometimes they're 7, sometimes they're 10, and they're always red in the face whenever they share ideas. And when I realized that I was the only person that could help them or that wanted to help them, that gave me a motivation that no other, like a breathing exercise or other power posing or drinking water or ritual could ever give me. And that's what I encourage for all of us to start thinking about.
So one thing I think you really hit a great point is that I think a lot of younger people, they're afraid to communicate to adults because they're lesser than, or they think they're lesser than. So you kind of help younger people overcome that fear of doubt and how to communicate through, right? In general.
Yeah. And let me give you the easy example here, because I like easy wins, Daniel. Like I'm not the fear-mongering coach. I'm not the guy who's going to be like, you're going to die if you don't communicate more effectively. I'm more about the dream. So for me, I didn't start coaching executives right away. I started coaching like the 15-year-olds I was talking about. Then I started coaching people my own age. I didn't even worry about the old guys and gals. I didn't even worry about now that I am one of the old guys. But you know, back then, like I wouldn't worry about those people. I would just coach people your own age. Have fun with that. Give those people advice, and then gradually move up the age range. Then go, okay, you're comfortable 20, then try 25. You comfortable 25, then try 30. Like my first CEO clients weren't 40 years old then. Now they are. Now they're 40, 50, 60. But when I started, they were my age. They were my tech CEO friends who were trying to raise their first round of capital for their technology startup, and they didn't have money for a coach. So I just started helping them for free. That's how I started developing my first C-level experience. And then my age matured up over time. And I encourage people to start what they're comfortable with. But the worst thing to do is to not start at all.
That's always the no matter what it is in business, it's not starting is always the worst thing. And I'm really glad you said that too, because like for me it was just like I know I have some value to give, and if I provide it, I know the audience will come eventually. And lives are being changed because of my message. So it's one of those things where like the message is more important than the fear. 100%.
Hundo, brother.
100%. I try and inspire my audience and my clients in general just to like be out there more, because we're going into a digital age where you have to have a digital footprint in some fashion. So one of my, I did an interview with a client of mine, got him on the first podcast. He hopped on this podcast, and now I just saw a post yesterday. He's starting a podcast with a group of his friends in his little apartment, whatever. So it's kind of cool seeing my push, and I don't know if it was a large enough push or it might have just been enough for his own audience and make change. So it's kind of cool.
That's amazing, brother. Love that.
And like I said, a lot of my clients are business owners. I work directly with business owners. How can business people leverage speaking, podcasting to grow their business?
Absolutely, brother. So let's start by the problem I see with business owners, and then let's talk about your question. The biggest problem with business owners is they don't make communication a priority, right? They don't make it a priority in the way that they are thinking about their business. And the question I have for business owners to reflect on is, are your communication skills scaling with the business? Is your business scaling with your communication skills? I'll give you the simplest example here. Let's say your business doing 100,000 right now in annual revenue. Let's say gross revenue. Well, most of your focus is probably sales, marketing, and delivery, right? You're trying to sell a lot more. You're probably the only person there. There's probably maybe 2 employees, 1 employee at the very most, and you're just trying to grow, which is totally fine. But the context I would like to set is when you start doing $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 in revenue, you need to realize that a lot of the things that you used to do as a business owner, you won't do anymore. So because of that, you'll need to start delegating to other people for delivery, for sales, for marketing, which means your communication skills need to be super sharp for that level. So when you're creating standard operating procedures, if you're not able to communicate the expectations clearly and help your team and give them feedback and inspire them, they won't be able to do the job as well as you used to do. And then you'll start to get frustrated and you'll create a lot of inefficiencies within the business. So it's also important to think about your future state, because a lot of business owners don't make it a priority because they don't have communication goals. They have health goals, they have financial goals, they have relationship goals, but very few of them prioritize their comms. So that's the key. You need to start thinking about that future version to get there. Same thing with being a podcast guest, speaking on a stage. If you have that skill, you have an advantage other people in your industry just don't. Like, there's a lot of times I go into a podcast and I'll make 10 grand in just an hour if I'm on the right show. And the reason is simply this: if 3,000 people are listening to that episode, but 3 of them become clients, or 4 of them become clients, or 5 of them become clients, you'll for an hour of your time, you'll have gotten the best ROI for your time. And that's really the case I want to start building. But don't worry about the financials. I would say just worry about doing the reps. So the first couple of times I was on a podcast, Daniel, I didn't worry about the ROI. Even today, I still don't worry about it. For me, it's more just like, let's have fun with this. It's a great practice round so that when I'm on the big shows, and I'm probably on a super big show, like let's say once every 2 weeks now at this point, I go in there and I slam dunk it, right? And that's the key that I want to plant for business owners. Don't worry about the direct ROI. Just start guesting on shows for the fun of it. Deliver a ton of value, and that skill set that you'll develop won't just help you in stages. It'll also help you in your day-to-day business when you're answering client questions, as an example.
I really like what you said about not just communicating for outreach and marketing, but it's communicating with your personnel as well, because I really want to get that people's heads that you get to a certain point where you're not actually doing the day-to-day work anymore. And I 100% agree with that. Like, I've kind of stepped out of that role where I'm advisory with my clients and sales team on the floor. So it's one of those things where, like, you really aren't doing that job anymore. So don't focus heavily on doing that up front, just because if you grow to a certain point, you're not going to do it anymore. You'll be doing other things, which I'm really glad you said that, because a lot of people, they just like, I'm going to do this forever. I'm like, no, probably not. Probably not. So I'm really glad you said that, because I think a lot of people, they think that they'll never get there, but consistency will get you there. And then everything else just falls in line. So that was a cool little tidbit right there. That was a good one right there. Let's talk about communication and sales, because I kind of like, I've gone to events and I'm just like, this is like, I'm a speaker myself. I do podcasts myself, but when I go to events, I don't actually connect with the speaker because they sell 100% of the time, and it's like a hard sell. And I just get thrown off by it. And like, I hope I never do that from stage, because it's just one of those things where, like, you should be providing value and not necessarily doing a hard sell. So a lot of people like kind of get those mixed up. And what's something you can kind of give to that? Because as soon as somebody sells me something, I'm like, I just disconnect myself, and like I might sometimes I'll walk out of the room in some cases.
Absolutely, Daniel. Look, here's my perspective on this. I think anyone who goes for a direct close on a stage without adding value first will always lose. Right?
Okay.
They'll always lose long. I personally never do that. Like all of my free trainings, all of like podcasts, I never sell programs. I don't even talk about it. But there's also a balance, right, that I want to make sure is clear. Because if you don't sell at all, then you're not making any money, right? So it's important for you to balance. So the way that you should do this, not in every situation, so every industry is different, but I'd say the general principle is you got to give the information and sell the implementation. So what does that mean? That means in any keynote, any situation, deliver, focus on the information. But when they get on calls with you, when you're having private conversations, you're selling them on the implementation. I'll give you an example with my business. I'll gladly share all the information for free. That's my mission, right? That's why I created MasterTalk. There's no pitch on MasterTalk. It's really just watch. But for a small percentage of the audience, they'll say like, I don't have time for YouTube videos. I make multiple six figures. I have a business that's doing over 100 grand. I just want to be a fast communicator. Like I want to get the result because my time is too valuable. For those groups of people who are like executives, upcoming executives in the tech space, business owners who are already having some success, not people who are getting started, and coaches, they'll invest in a speech coach. They'll spend whatever the price is because they value the time better more than the money. But for most people, I'm just here to sell information, right? Take my free information. Go learn. Go make yourself better because you can still implement on the free information. So that's the way I think about it. So how does that work on a stage? How that works is you focus on information, but there needs to be a bridge between your information and your implementation. So what does that look like in my business? What that looks like for me, as business owners, is that when I'm at a podcast, I always promote my free trainings. That's always what I promote. That's my bridge. So then the people who want to engage with me more, if they liked what they heard on the podcast, they come to my free training. And even on the free training, I don't pitch. But what I do at the end of the free training, it's funny, I usually don't say this, but since it's beneficial to add value to the audience of business, I might as well tell you. But then at the end, I say, if you're interested in coaching, then book a free call with me and I'll give you free advice. And even on the call, I don't sell them. I go like, okay, look, I'm going to give you free advice, but in the last 5 minutes, if you want to talk about my programs, I can talk about it, but there's no pressure. That's the way I play it. So that way you add value to every layer of the value chain and your reputation compounds over time so that the people who want to be sold to will go into private conversations with you and get sold to. But the last piece I'll say, and I'll throw it back to you, is you need the bridge. So the bridge means if you don't have a constant way of communicating, you're going to lose the lead. So what you want to do in a free presentation is at the end of the free presentation, you need to give them something. Hey guys, if you're interested in learning more about me, you want to talk to me more, I encourage you to go to this website and register for X freebie. X freebie could be a PDF. I like free trainings better because I think that's the best freebie in the market right now. Come to my next free training, and that's how you can book a call with me or book a free call with me, and that's it. Does that help? Does that serve?
100%, because that's the way I like it too. Because like I don't like. You always want to collect that lead, but not so aggressively ask for the sale.
Correct.
Because it's just one of those things where like, so I did a presentation back in February, and one of my business is automation. So I was like, who wants to see what business automation looks like? And everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, pull out your phones. I'm like, all right, pull out the phone. Everybody pulled out their phones and like, text me. So I text the number, and then everybody texts me. So my phone blew up. Well, I was on stage, but it was one of those things where like I really wanted to effectively connect with the audience and give them show them a demonstration at the same time. Whenever I had that thought in my head, because I'm like, I have to try this to see if it works. And it worked amazingly. So now I'm going to use it every time I get on stage. But it's just one of those things. I love that. I really connected with the audience because I'm like you always want to hit on people's pains, because everybody has the same pain when you're talking to your potential client. Everybody has the same pain. And it's just like touching the pain, touching the solution. And if you want to get connected with me, here's how you do it.
Absolutely.
So I think I didn't learn this overnight. It was just, I pay attention. Like I catch fragments from different people, and it's just one of those things where like I'm not necessarily studying. I'm not necessarily a reader either, but I pay attention to when people speak, and that was a good little tidbit. Let me use that in my own thing. And it's just like you absorb information from different sources, because you didn't know what you're going to learn from them. It's just one of those things. That's why I was kind of excited about this interview in general, just because I've never talked to a speaking coach. So I'm like, okay, let me see what I can pull out of them.
You can pull out anything, man. I'm super open.
I know. That's such the cool thing about podcasts. So let's talk about that. Even that right there. Podcasting is a hack because you can learn from the people for the 30 to 60 minutes you have them on the line to ask the questions you want to know. It's an education opportunity, 100%.
Absolutely. The way that I think about it, and that might not be true with every industry, because I don't like to generalize, but definitely in the coaching, speaking, information industry, I've always believed that the people who are the most generous win the market, right? So there's one person who just completely dominates the market. So for example, in life coaching, it's Tony Robbins, because he's the most generous. Like, his events are freaking amazing. Obviously, he does some hard pitches here and there, but I would say overall, the value I've gotten from him has far exceeded the money I've spent on him. Right. And same someone like Gary Vee, the guy doesn't even sell courses. He's just like information free. But now he's being able to sell NFTs as a back end. He's made ridiculous amounts of money, but it's earned. It's not like he scammed people or anything. He earned that media, and his NFT project is sound. So I think the key is you need to be super, super generous on the front end so that people trust you. And that way you, over the long haul, obviously you got to play a long game with this. Obviously now it's paying off for me, because I've been giving for 3-4 years for free, and I post daily on LinkedIn. It took years for it to percolate. But now when that reputation is established, I mean, people are just going to automatically trust you. There's so many calls I get on, and that's the benefit, right? And I'm sure the same thing happens with you. People don't even they don't even question it. They just go, just tell me the product. I'm just going to buy it, because they already trust you. Right. And that's the fame, that's the reputation, that's the trust that cannot get built overnight. It gets built over time as you deliver for clients and as you get great service out there.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. There was I made a joke with somebody the other day, and a lot of people think what allows you to educate and teach the masses? I'm like, well, I did. I made a decision to do it, and I stood up and started creating. And that's the difference between creators and consumers, is that no one allows you to do what you want to do. You have to put yourself in a position to move mountains.
Absolutely. And one framework that helped me a lot as well is study your competitors. Like, the main reason I was so confident around what I was doing, even if I was half the age of most people, was because I watched all their YouTube videos and I disagreed with 50% of what they were saying. I was like, that's not how you coach communicate. That's not how I would do it. Because I was still a practitioner. I didn't just randomly start I'd coach 50 or 70 people for free back then, because it was just fun for me. But then they were talking about how to do it, and I was like, no, I wouldn't do that. That's too negative. That's not going to get the buy-in. But I disagreed with so many things that I was just like, okay, I clearly know just as much as these people, if not more, just factually. So then I started making content. So it's the same thing for the content that people want to create who are listening to this pod, Daniel. For the business owners, go watch what other people in your space. Don't look at what I'm doing unless you want to be a speech coach. Look at what are other people in your space doing and watch their content, and just look at it, and you be the judge. Does this make sense? What would I disagree with? That I change? And if there's at least 2 or 3 things that you would do differently, that should give you permission to jump ship and do it.
Mm-hmm. You don't really need permission.
You don't.
So I think we talked about a lot of beginner speakers and kind of coming into the marketplace and providing value in your own way. What's a tip you can give someone who's a little bit more experienced? They've done this a couple times. They know it's the direction they want to go, but how can they be more effective whenever they do speak?
I would say the biggest mistake business owners make, it's simple, brother, but nobody does it, and they leave so much money on the table, is they don't triple down on their existing client base. And what I mean by that, and fans, it doesn't mean to be client, just people who are fans of them. I'll give you something simple that I doubt 95% of business owners are implementing or are listening to this conversation right now. 100%. I'd even say 100%, but I won't say 100, or else because of one person will be like, well, I do it. But so the message is super simple. Every quarter, every 6 months, you should be sending at least one video message to every client that's ever worked with you, period. End of story. 3 weeks ago, I sent 70 video messages. It took me an hour and a half, and I made easily 10, 15 Gs doing that with no effort. Why? Because no service provider sends video messages to just check in. You're not selling people in these videos. You're just going, hey, Daniel, I hope you're having a wonderful year, man. Just want to send you a quick video message to say how much I appreciate you. I love the time that we worked together, and I hope you have a wonderful day. It makes people's days, Daniel. It makes their life. And then they come up to you and they go, "Oh, Brenden, actually, you just came top of mind to me," which was completely intentional, right? And they go, "Oh, yeah, I totally forgot to refer this person to you. Do you want an intro? I would love that introduction, Daniel. Thank you so much." Right? So if you send 70 of these videos, 7 or 10 of them are going to give you a referral without you even asking. They'll be like, "Oh, Brenden, it's so great to hear from you." Or, "Daniel, it's so great to hear from you." But most people, oh my God, they just leave that money on the table because they overthink it. They go, "Oh, but Brenden, Daniel, what do I need to say in this video? What if I mess up the technique?" And I was like, who cares? They already bought from you. They already love you. They already care about what you do. Just sending them a shitty video will mean so much to them. Like for me, one of the strategies I implement in my business is anyone who shares isn't even a client, Daniel. Anyone who shares my free training, the 3 to 5 people, I message people who come to my free trainings and I go, "Can you share this with 3 to 5 people?" It's so easy to do. They're not even like buying anything from me. Can you just share it with 3 of your friends? And the people who say yes and do it, I just send them a personal video message. Hey, and they don't buy anything from me. "Hey, Daniel, really appreciate you sending 3 to 5. And when I send that video message, they send it to 10 more people. And that's how I get free leads. Right? So that's the key. You got to leverage the video messages, and nobody does it. Like I've coached hundreds of people, and I'm the only person I know who still does it as consistent. Even my clients don't do it. I have to hit them on the head to do it so that they make more money than what they spend on me. It's like, there you go.
I like that because it's something that I didn't even think about that. I mean, I have the ability to do that, but it's just like it's something easily overlooked, and it's something different to separate yourself.
100%, bro. And the reason I'm being so aggressive today is because when the second you told me this audience is business owners, I changed my tune. And the reason I changed my tune is because we're entering a recession, guys. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but like the U.S. economy has gone down in GDP. Like the percentage is down. We still have time, but a lot of the smartest people in the world are saying that this economy is going to go to the shithole in like the next 6 months. So if you're a business owner and you want to win, you got to take every advantage that you can. Whether it's increasing your burn rate, like I have, like I'm saving for a 2-month emergency fund right now, even if I don't need one, just in case. Right? I'm making all of the decisions so that all of the best businesses who survive this recession, once again, it's not guaranteed that's going to happen, but you always got to prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? So the same thing, like the business owners, when you start losing capital, your revenue, customers start defaulting, you can't buy ads. Like the only way that you win is by using the people who already believe in you to buy up more business, to get more word of mouth. So if you're not leveraging the videos and your competitors are, you're going to lose to your competitors, right? So that's the key. Leverage every advantage you get. Don't just listen to this on a podcast. I'll encourage you to. I'll push you too, Daniel, right? At the end of this episode, pick those 5 clients that absolutely adore you and just send them a video message to check in on them.
It's a personal touch, 100%.
Oh yeah, man.
That connects. Yeah, the recession coming up, I 100% believe it's here and affecting worse. But we do real estate, so it actually helps us in some cases. So
there you go. Amazing. Yeah.
It's a flip of the coin.
Yeah, well, you kind of have to balance it. Rising interest rates means it costs more money to take out the loan, but then if you have a lot of cash on hand, sure. Yeah, that makes sense too.
Gotcha. How do you come up with such great responses on the fly? Because you're really good at asking good questions. And I feel like I'm okay at it, but you are really good at asking questions. Do you always ask your questions with a question, or is it because you're really direct with your communication? And I can tell.
100%. Very sharp observation, Daniel. So the answer is it's not a secret. It's not like I drank a magic potion and I just woke. This is like my 500-600th podcast guest.
Wow.
Okay, this is not like I haven't been in this. I know I look like I'm not the oldest guy in the room, but yeah, I've done like hundreds of podcast appearances. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling this because I sucked the first couple. I literally have 18 shows this week that I'm on. 18, right? Because I'm getting so much inbound because of the YouTube channel. But the point is it's a great practice. So the first 100 times I sucked. People were asking me a bunch of questions I didn't have the answer to, but what you'll find as you guest on more shows, as an example, then I'll give a concrete principle for any business owner, even if you don't decide to podcast, is the idea that people aren't asking you what your favorite fruit is. Like, you're not going to ask me what my favorite color is. It's not serving your audience. You're going to ask me, okay, these communication tips, business tips, what should we do in the recession, Brenden? What should we do this? It's the same questions on repeat. So the first time you answer the question, you suck at it. But then when you reflect on it, you'll have a better answer next time. So this is probably my 57th version answering this question versus my first one. That's why the answer is more direct and cleaner than it used to be. But obviously you don't see the first attempts, you only see the latest one, right? And that's really the key. But the other thing I would say is a practical kind of step that anyone could take, because you don't need to be a podcast guest to get better at answering questions, because you still need to master the skill, people, because you're going to be talking to your prospects, you're talking to customers, they're always asking you questions, and you need to be confident in those situations too. So all I'm asking for, Daniel, is 5 minutes out of somebody's day. I call this the question drill. Every day as a business owner, spend 5 minutes, not 5 hours. You got 5 minutes. You spent 37 listening to this podcast, so you got 5. Reflect on one question that you think a prospect or a customer or a host is going to ask you about your business or about your expertise. Just one question every day, and think 5 minutes answering the question. Do that once a day, every day. If you do that for a year, you'll have answered 365 questions about your business, and you'll be unbeatable in your industry.
You know, one thing, I'm really glad you said that too, because like, this is one of those things where like, right now I'm really, really comfortable. And it's because I have the experience that if any podcast I go on, you can ask me any question because I already know the answer. And 100% I will, man, that was so spot on, because like, the reason why I know the answer is because I already said the answer before, and it's just muscle memory. It just kicks in, and I already know the answer. So the total synopsis of that question is, if you answer the question more and more, people are going to ask the same question over and over again. You already know the answer and how to phrase it. You get better at phrasing it every time you do it. That was good. That was a really good one, because it's just muscle memory. Once you work it in, it just comes out naturally. And whenever you're put in that position, you can't get cornered, because that's one thing. When I first started doing this in general, I was like, I'm afraid to get cornered. I'm afraid to get cornered. You're dreading nightmares like, I can't answer that question. No, I can't do it. And then even now, like when you do podcasting, there's like, is there any questions we can't ask or things we need to stay away from? And I'm like, no, I mean, you can go any direction you want. It's just one of those things where like, I'm ready. I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable in my own skin, 100%. That was gold right there. That was gold, because like I said, I struggled with that early on, and I kind of knew the answer, but I'm really glad you touched on what I thought the answer was, because that's 100% it. That's it. Muscle memory, 100%. That was pure right there. I like that. This has been a great conversation in general. I hope people, if you don't find value today, start implementing some things, and you'll find value later on, because conversations like this is a conversation for someone who's experienced, general experience. I think we covered a lot of beginning stuff, but there's a lot of tidbits for different levels, and that's why I like these conversations in general, just because there's so much you can learn that you might not understand, but you got to come back and listen to it again. It takes re-listens to understand exactly 100% what they're talking about. 100%. How can you communicate leadership? Because I really like talking about business in general, but leadership, there's a confidence that comes out when you speak to make people listen. And it's like, knowing you have the authority, but also compassion that comes with it to communicate and lead your people, or lead your clients, or lead your employees. How do you communicate that through an everyday conversation?
Here's the easy answer to this, Daniel. I would say there's no silver bullet. You know, my coach, Dan Henry, talks a lot about this. He says competence leads to confidence. You know, when you have the receipts to back your experience, there's nothing that gives you more confidence in running a business and leading your clients and the people around you, right? Because you've just been through that interaction over and over again, that it becomes clockwork. But what I would say is the key to confidence, the key to being a great leader, is taking those small steps to gain points on the scoreboard. I'll give you an example. Let's say we take the question draw exercise. You know, most of you probably won't implement it, but there's a small percentage of the people listening who'll go like, you know what? Brenden's might be saying something right here. Let me book 5 minutes in my calendar. It's not going to kill me. One question a day. So let's say somebody does that for 3 months. The business owner who has answered 100 questions about their business just feels that internal confidence that they know what they're talking about that cannot be bought. It could only be earned. right? Because they feel it. They go into that prospecting call. They go into, like, I got 4 sales calls today, right? And the first one went really well. But the reason I say that is because I know all of those calls will go well, because I know way more than the client does around communication, or the potential client does. But that's not because I'm smarter than them or more important than them. That's because I know I've done the 300 question drills that my prospect hasn't, right? So it's the same thing with the person in your business. How are you showing up? How are you adding points on the scoreboard so you feel internally that you're better? So that's one piece. The second piece is the random word exercise, which I don't think we talked about today. So it's basically you take a random word like phone, like geography, like rubber band, and you create presentations out of thin air. And the reason this is such an effective exercise is because if you can make sense out of nonsense, you can make sense out of anything, right? And that's really the key to the random word. So a lot of people might go, oh, random word exercise is cool. Like, they'll write it down, they'll never do it. And once again, the same percentage of people I was talking to before who are doing the question, they'll go like, let me just add 5 extra minutes here. Let me book 15 minutes tomorrow instead of 5. So I can do question drills and the random word. Well, if you do that, a few times a day, it only takes a minute to do it once. Pick one random word, give a 6-second presentation, move on to the next random word. It takes 5 minutes to do 5 words. If you do that for a month, Daniel, you'll have done this like 100, 150 times. So once again, you'll feel that internally. And eventually you'll get to a point like, wait a second here. I'm talking to someone who's in the same industry as you. They haven't done the question drill 300 times. They haven't done the random word exercise 200-300 times. They haven't guessed on as many podcasts. And you just start adding up the tally and you just outscore your competition. You go like, wait, like, they don't got anything on me. And then you develop that confidence that helps you become a better leader in your day-to-day. But I don't think there's like one thing that you can do to like be a better communicator as a leader. I think it's more about you've done so many things that they automatically transition to this beautiful domino effect where your communication skills just start stacking and multiplying on top of each other until you feel like you're the best in the world at what you do.
It's all, I feel like it's all right here. It's all right here. Is when you do the exercises, it makes your confidence, and you know the material, the source material. You know you can pull from anywhere, and it's just building up your mind to find the words. That's good. That's good. Okay, so where can people find you online? Because I think that's not the question, but I mean, MasterTalk, right?
Absolutely, brother. Well, first of all, it's such a pleasure being on the show, man. Thanks for having me. So there's 2 ways to keep in touch. The first one is, the YouTube channel, of course. Easy way to keep in touch, go to the YouTube channel, MasterTalk. You'll have access to hundreds of free videos. And then the second way to keep in touch, like we talked about earlier, if you're interested in coaching, come to one of my free trainings. They're free, they're interactive, they're live, they're over Zoom, they're fun. It's not some recorded webinar. And you could register for that at rockstarcommunicator.com.
rockstarcommunicator.com. I'll make sure I get a link for that 100%. One thing I really want to ask at the end is, what is a quote that is yours or somebody else's that you resonate with? I know you mentioned one earlier, but I'm sure you have another one.
Yeah, I'll give you a Brenden special for the people who made it 45 minutes in this interview. The quote is, be insane or be the same. If you want to be like everyone else, that's totally fine. But if you want to do something impactful to you, if you want to do something special, you want to do something different, and chances are you do, or else you wouldn't still be listening to the show, then you got to realize that people who do crazy things with their life are crazy people. Don't you find it odd that I started a YouTube channel at the age of 22, not on pranks, not on skits, not on music videos, but on public speaking and executive communication. And then I went on to coach those executives for money, but I still live in my mother's basement. I'm too scared to drive my car. I bought the car, but I'm too scared to drive it, even if I have a license. I dance alone in my mother's basement an hour a day. I can karaoke in 8 different languages, and I'm in the 0.5, not the 5. I'm in the 0.5% of top listeners on Spotify for Justin Bieber. How does any of this make any sense at all, Daniel? And that, my friend, is the point. When every decision in your life makes sense to the only person that it should, which is you, you're probably making the right decisions. So be insane or be the same.
And one last question. How long have you been on YouTube? Because a lot of people think it takes a lot of time, but it's just being consistent and providing value. But how long have you been on YouTube?
Honestly, it's a lot more than that if we're having a real talk about this. But I would say, so I've been on YouTube for 3 years, but it took me 2.5 years to get to 10,000. right? So now I'm at 20. I'm only giving numbers because you're asking. Normally I wouldn't just tell people my subscriber count. I think it's like 23,000 now, but 13,000 of that following came like in the last like 6 to 12 months. So after you, exactly. So after 10,000, it starts to really scale, but getting to 10,000 was like a pain in the ass. You know, I spend 5 figures on my video production every year. I have like a team of 2 people who manage my YouTube channel for. Like I invest a lot of my personal money because for me, it was never about the money. That's why I spent so much money at the beginning. It was really around how do I share information with people who can't afford me. That's why MasterTalk started, and then it accidentally turned into a business later. So I would say for anyone looking to do a YouTube channel, I would advise against it unless you have a big mission around it. And if you do, I would just advise you to start. I started making videos in my mom's basement, literally over there on that couch with the phone. And I practiced every week with no edits. I just posted every week until I was great on camera. And then I transitioned professionally later. But you need to post to see if you want to do this long term. But honestly, for most people listening to this, YouTube's not the game for you.
Awesome. I think we'll leave everybody with that. That was a good ending to the call. I appreciate your time, man. I learned a lot. I hope other people did too, but I learned a lot. And I really appreciate your time, man. 8 different languages. That's amazing.
I don't speak 8 different languages, so we're clear. I speak 3 languages, but I can karaoke in 8.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's still something. I mean, it's exercise in general of language, but it would make sense that a master communicator would try and converse in 8 languages. I mean, it is what it is.
It's more to help me pronounce words. It's a trick I teach people. Like, how do you pronounce words and articulate better? If you just pronounce words in languages you don't understand, English becomes really, really easy.
I think we'll leave them with that one. That's a good tip right there.
It's not something I think people will implement, but yeah, if you're more advanced, go for it.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on, Brenden. Please go check it all. Money Master Talk on YouTube.
The show is sponsored by The List Guys. Do you need more leads in your local or virtual market? 1 in 10 small businesses don't invest in any kind of marketing. The List Guys have over 35 plus list types to choose from, and you can mix and match any list or criteria. We also use the skip trace list and provide up to 7 numbers and email addresses. Every list you purchase will be scrubbed against previous purchases. The List Guys are here to save you time. Contact the List Guys today at www.1listguys.com. That's www.1listguys.com.